Um, we will turn the recording off at the end for other questions, and we will go ahead and get started with this. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. Happy Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us at 2 p.m. I know it's a little later than most times for meetings and trainings, but nonetheless, we're happy to have you all. And I am very pleased to see a good number of green purchasing specialists here for the training. So congrats to joining us today and getting your credits to continue your certification. We're going to go over Janitorial Services, our green specification that the Green Purchasing Committee has published. It was published back in 2021, so there weren't many changes to it recently, but I'm going to be going through that. And let's get to it. So the learning objectives for today, we're going to talk about how to find all of the specifications that we have. We have a very robust library at the moment of specs. Understand how to implement the minimum requirements of Janitorial Services Spec in future solicitations. That's probably the most important thing, probably the main reason why you're all here. We're going to go over the procedures, the chemicals and equipment used, the training and record keeping of environmentally preferable janitorial services. That's a big bulk of what this presentation goes over. The different procedures, the different requirements for the chemicals and equipment used, how to use them sustainably, and what kind of training and other documentation are good things to keep during the contract. We're going to review eco-labels and third-party certifications awarded for janitorial services and supplies. And lastly, we're going to go over those reporting requirements for the services procured and the products that were purchased for the contract. So there's two ways to get to our specifications page, but Vicky's already ahead of me right now. She's got the GPC homepage and the Spec website attached right there. So it'll take you right to our homepage. You click on specifications on the resources panel. It'll take you to a list of all of our specs, and you'll click on janitorial supplies and services. I did go over janitorial supplies in past training. Some of those slides will be, presented again, but there are planned duplicates for that in greening janitorial services. Sometimes setting green requirements for the products being used in that service could green your contract. So thank you for sharing those resources, Vicky. I feel like most of you know this by now for a majority of you here, but in case this is your first training or first time learning about our specifications, they include all relevant laws, statutes, and regulations. The requirements have been vetted by our committee, so we draft it and get feedback. Sometimes we have sourcing teams with subject matter experts involved to make sure that the requirements can be met. And we reference environmental certifications in those specifications, and they do not contribute to greenwashing, and the environmental claims have been verified. So it's composed of prohibited products, the minimum requirements, the recommendations, things that we cannot require due to maybe lack of availability, but we can recommend as a green optional, in this case, janitorial service. We have environmentally preferable purchasing language and all the legislation, statutes, and regulations to back up our requirements. Everything that we have in our spec has some legislative requirement attached to it, unless it's a recommendation. So there's ways to use this spec. You'll use this spec specifically for all procurement contracts for janitorial services with an estimated value of 200,000 or greater. So for a job that has that value, you must include the minimum requirements that are set forth with contractors are required to comply with those. For values less than that, agencies are still encouraged to include those requirements in all other contracts. And so when the requirements that we have set forth in here, they typically come from leaders in sustainability, in this case, janitorial services, as well as supplies. So a lot of these requirements come from Green Seal's standard. They have a standard for commercial cleaning services that is called the GS42. We'll talk a little bit about that. A lot more information about that is on their website. This document will also go over some additional service options for organics recycling, like composting, that procurement officers may include in solicitations. I know that some agencies have been looking to implement composting and organics recycling at their agency, so there are some options there for that. And a big thing to note here is that I'm going to mention a lot the building services supervisor or some other designated representative. That person is to be the main point of contact with the contractor. A lot of the communication will go on between them. Agencies or procurement officers should identify who the building supervisor is in this solicitation, just so that people know who's responsible for what, in order for that to be done. So we'll just go briefly over legislation in the janitorial spec, but which is very common in every spec that we have for procurement officers and agencies. This is just to remind you that it's listed in COMAR that all agencies have to buy green, that's environmentally preferable products. These caveats are starting to not come into play as much, whether they don't perform adequately or exclude adequate competition or not available at a reasonable price and a reasonable period of time. There has been a big growth of green products available to the market, so 99% of cases you are required to buy green. That is listed in the specification. And for contractors, bidders, and offerers, if you claim to have green products or services, that must be backed up and be consistent with the Federal Trade Commission's guidelines for the use of environmental marketing terms. So that is the State Finance and Procurement Article 14-410, and also limitations on prohibitions and toxins in packaging. That would be for lead, cadmium, mercury, hexavalent, chromium, all of the things that are not good for human health, so limiting that. These statutes and regulations are in most, if not all, of our specifications. And so that's just all general legislation to back up these requirements. So I'll now go into the prohibitions for janitorial services. We only have one, and it's related to aerosol containers. None of these products that are covered in the spec can be offered in aerosol containers. It's not only proven to cause risks to human health, global warming and ozone depletion, they also have been known to cause fires in recycling facilities. So this is something that we include in our spec to not offer aerosol containers. So for the offer and the contractor, in order to be qualified for the contract, they can submit third-party certification for environmentally preferable janitorial services, such as the GS42 that I had mentioned earlier. I'll talk a little bit about Green Seal. They are one example of a third-party certification, which we call eco-labels. Green Seal specifically goes over the janitorial supplies and services category. They have a list of standards, and so we take a lot of their standards and implement this into our specs. So that's why I had to give them a shout out real quick. Their standard includes these types of services for commercial or institutional buildings, for hotels, assisted living, hospitals, and other properties, other public spaces, also common public areas in dormitories, apartments, and so on. The services do not include residential or specific specialty cleaning services for like one specific thing. It has it listed in there on Green Seal's website. If you look up the GS42, it will give a fuller detail of what it covers and what it doesn't. But in that standard, it goes over environmentally preferable cleaning products. That is right up the alley of the Green Purchasing Committee, which is what we are all about, which is offering environmentally preferable products. They have the different product types listed in here under janitorial supplies. So it's going to specifically look at general purpose cleaners. So those different types of cleaners, just those chemicals like bathroom cleaners, floor cleaners, floor finishes and floor strippers, liquid hand soap and foam hand soap, toilet tissue and facial tissue, so paper products as well. So really looking at the chemicals used for cleaning and the paper products that are used to like wipe down surfaces. And also the plastic trash bags, the trash can liners for trash and recycling or composting. I'll get into those requirements soon. Another certification that can be accepted for green janitorial services is the ISSA Cleaning Industry Management Standard. That is the Green Building Certification, CIMS-GB. They have a lot of information or useful resources for the building service contractors, as well as information on government facility cleaning, hospitality facility cleaning. I thought that said hospital facility cleaning. Bidders may submit references or other qualifications or alternatives. So it's not just limited to these two certifications that can be qualified as a green janitorial service. And I'll go into the requirements that can make it qualified. So we're going to transition into minimum requirements. One big requirement here from the contractor is a written building specific cleaning plan. If you have all been in the IPM spec training that we gave, it's the details of the specific cleaning plan is very consistent in terms of what it contains with the IPM plan. Just listing what those procedures are, what chemicals and equipment are being used, and what training records do you have to show that you're able to perform the work. So that must be submitted to the building services supervisor, and the plan must address requirements in this section of parts A and B. So that is the different procedures and the chemicals, equipment, and materials involved in performing that work. So it's going to be provided within 30 days after signing the contract. Twice a year without contract duration, in a written format, whether it's Word, Excel, or PDF. It has to go into detail what procedures and what chemicals, equipment, and materials are being used. And it has to cover these different aspects of janitorial services: the handling, tracking, and storage of cleaning products, the equipment operation procedures and maintenance, waste disposal, and communications with management and occupants of the building. So in these requirements that I'm about to go through, a lot of it relates to either environmental sustainability or like environmentally preferable products, but also when we're looking at janitorial services, we're also really looking at worker safety and occupant health. So a lot of it is going to be preventative measures to reduce like overexposure to chemicals, or sanitizing surfaces so that for occupants it is safe to enter. So the procedure requirements, along with the requirements that we have set forth here, they're also required to follow the CDC cleaning protocols, which gives information of when and how to clean and disinfect a facility. And that goes over different items for cleaning, like hard and soft surfaces, laundry items, electronics, and outdoor items. So the CDC guidelines, the CDC cleaning protocols are typically very consistent with the certified janitorial service certifications that I was mentioning earlier. But getting into cleaning of restrooms, again, we're looking at like the worker safety and occupant health aspect of things. So daily cleaning, performing high to low toward the doorway with dry cleaning tasks performed prior to wet cleaning processes. And I think that that's due to like reduce any contamination with already cleaned surfaces. Be cleaned and then disinfected in high-touch areas at a minimum daily, removing standing moisture from floors and bathroom surfaces, and daily bathroom trash liners pulled and receptacles disinfected. Oops, I skipped ahead. Kitchen, dining, and break room cleaning. I'm sure a lot of offices contain break rooms, so that's why I included that image in there to make it seem like the most relevant. But in general, cleaning the food contact surfaces daily or on a schedule predetermined by the building supervisor, who may have information of how often that area is used. I know that some buildings have kitchens that haven't been in use for a long time, so that schedule for cleaning might be less frequent than it being one that's been used more frequently. Clean and sanitize daily for high-touch surfaces. So that would typically be faucet handles, drinking fountains, door handles, lunchroom tables and chairs. So I include this in a number of different procedures that the building supervisor, they can change the amount of frequency of cleaning and disinfection as needed. They're going to be the ones that manage the building and maintain the building the most, so it's going to be their prerogative whether something needs to be cleaned more frequently or even less often. If they're suggests to not overuse cleaning materials for areas that have already been sanitized recently. So I do keep that side note under there for quite a few. Waste trash collection, pretty straightforward, but disposed of daily. I do want to mention that the trash can liners that are used for trash removal do have requirements for post-consumer recycled content if it is low density trash can liners. So under here, to have a minimum 10% of post-consumer recycled content, or if it's high density, be less than 0.7 microns in thickness. And an eco-label option would be from BPI, that's Biodegradable Products Institute. So basically, the trash can liners have to be either contain recycled content or have to be that of a third-party certifier. So they have to be BPI compostable. So the compostable route, if you have the eco label in there, that will qualify. And typically BPI is the primary compostability certifier in the United States, but there are others like Vincent OK Compost and Dincerto. So there are other options. I don't want to, we don't want to say that it has to be from this one eco label. There are many other nationally recognized standards that maybe the GPC hasn't been able to acknowledge yet. So that's why we keep those possibilities open. As for floor maintenance, this is a straightforward one, but the heavy traffic areas must be vacuumed daily. So that would be entrances, break rooms, and main passageways. But as for light traffic areas like conference rooms, limited access areas, they only need to be vacuumed and mopped as necessary, as directed by the building services supervisor, as well as mats to be vacuumed and cleaned daily as needed, and as well as spot and stain removal as needed. So daily vacuuming and cleaning for those high foot traffic areas, but the other areas have to be determined by the building services supervisor. You know, that's why I mentioned in the beginning of the spec that it's very important to establish who that person will be, because a lot of that communication between them and a contractor is going to be important for the scheduling of how often this different types of cleaning procedures are going to be done. So it's not very common to have carpet extraction on a regular basis, but we do have some requirements here for non-routine floor maintenance. That would include floor scrubbing, stripping, refinishing, carpet cleaning, carpet extraction, and recoating of flooring. In this case, these activities have to be done during periods of minimum occupancy, so might have to be scheduled either out of occupant business hours or something like that. During or after floor stripping, scrubbing, or recoating operations, janitorial service staff need to ventilate the areas. These activities sometimes, well, not sometimes, but they are known to have some, air particles in the process of removing carpet, so, or floor scrubbing and things like that. So ventilating the area after the work is done, that's to watch out for occupant health and worker safety. Carpet cleaning and extraction, they must remove sufficient water from the carpet to provide airflow, to avoid standing water, to avoid more contamination with the carpet. Since it's already been cleaned, you don't want to clean it again. So that requirement is put in there. And so for these types of non-routine activities, that the contractor has to provide a reasonable notice to the building supervisor of before these things take place. They cannot perform non-routine floor maintenance without notifying the building supervisor. Okay, so moving on from procedures, that was the part A of part of the building specific cleaning plan. Now part B relates to the chemicals, equipment, and materials. Um, so some of this will cover products and the different equipment and materials used. Just going to take a sip real quick of coffee. Sorry. Thank you for letting me need to take a pause break. All right. General requirements for all housekeeping and janitorial supplies. BISM is our preferred provider. They offer many janitorial products from cleaning chemicals to floor maintenance chemicals, all of the procedures that I was mentioning earlier. They provide those products to perform that work. In support of this, they must comply with our requirements for janitorial supplies. That is in the janitorial supplies spec. And so the janitorial supplies, they have to be purchased from BISM to the extent that they are available. So if not available, then you go to, you know, your next option of either statewide vendors or anyone else who can provide those janitorial supplies. But BISM covers a lot of them. Compliant products by BISM are identified as green, and I will show you in the next slide that there is a purchaser guide that we do have on our website that goes over all of those green products consolidated into one document to make it a much easier reference guide for that. So the contractor has to provide these chemicals, equipment, and tools submitted at the beginning of the contract. So anything else that is needed, any other supplies that is needed after that plan has been submitted, it has to be approved again by the building services supervisor, just to check all our bases that the building supervisor has approved every product and every activity that is being done on the property. So I hope you're able to see it, but there's also, if you go to the purchasers page on our website, you can also access this BISM green products list, but this will be very relevant for procuring janitorial supplies and services. We worked together with BISM a couple years back to create a purchaser guide. It goes over what the product type is. It goes over if it has what that attribute is, whether it has an eco label like Green Seal certified or BPI certified. It talks about whether it has a eco label or certification or if there's recycled content involved. So specifically with janitorial products, it's the environmental attributes that can be verified are the the sustainable cleaning products, whether they're non-toxic or something like that, certified by a third party, or like I said, different paper products or equipment that have recycled content. So eco labels and recycled content are the two. And so the different eco labels that cover janitorial products used to perform that work. This covers most of them except for disinfectants, hand sanitizing, and janitorial paper products. There are different eco labels for that one. But Green Seal, that I've mentioned a couple times already, but UL Eco Label, UL Eco Logo, and EPA Safer Choice. I bet a number of you have seen that Safer Choice logo on some cleaning products before. It looks familiar to quite a few. So that doesn't again, that doesn't cover janitorial paper products, but in looking at cleaning supplies, those are the three eco-labels that will likely come into play. For the equipment, that is going to be Carpet and Rug Institute, CRI. They certify different vacuum cleaners and carpet extraction equipment. And this information is also included on the janitorial supplies specification. And so for future solicitations, including whether you're procuring janitorial services or just buying supplies, it's also good to include both specifications that the GPC has, because this presentation includes slides from both specs. So like I said, vacuum cleaners and carpet extraction equipment, CRI certified. And here are the other applicable eco labels, depending on what the work is being done. We mentioned BPI compostable for the bin liners and waste bags. There's also Forest Stewardship Council that focuses specifically on paper products or products that derive from harvesting lumber. So sustainably managed forests for those products. So that is good for verifying janitorial paper products, because I mentioned earlier that the Green Seal UL Eco logo do not cover that. And it verifies the recycled content. Lastly, Cradle to Cradle does certify some janitorial supplies. That would be hand sanitizers, antimicrobial hand sanitizers from Cradle to Cradle. That's it for eco-label requirements, but for recycled content requirements, very commonly used items for cleaning include sponges and scrubbers. That has a recycled content requirement of 100% cellulose or plant-based fiber. So either, be of, a bio-based content or contain a minimum of 20% post-consumer recycled material. And I do invite you to check out the eco-label websites that Vicky has been posting, because they go in to much more specific detail of their standards and how they perform them. And a lot of their information is open and available to the public, and vendors and manufacturers and those can look at, if I want to be if I want my product to be, let's say, CRI certified, I can just look up that resource. I can just look up what the standards are and how to follow them. So it's very transparent in that way. But as for transitioning back to recycled content requirements, wiping rags and cloths, again, it's either made from a microfiber content or a content fabric with a minimum of 10% post-consumer recycled content. You may wonder why 20% for sponges and scrubbers, why 10% for wiping rags and cloths. That has to do with how easily recyclable or recoverable that material is when it goes through the waste stream. So, if there's 100% recycled content requirement, that usually means that material usually doesn't break down, or is a little more sturdy and doesn't break down as much and can be recovered more easily. Just to give that frame of reference. So recycled content requirements, sorbets to contain 89% total recycled content. That complies with the comprehensive procurement guidelines that the EPA has. I'll go into more detail about that soon. Or the UL Eco Logo certification. Entryway mats must contain 100% post-consumer recycled content, face fiber, and 15% post-consumer content backing. or be USDA bio-based and PVC free. So you kind of notice that there tends to be an option of either getting a like a microfiber or biodegradable version of that product, or get one with recycled content. Going into the paper recycled content requirements, we do use a lot of our GPC recycled content requirements from the EPA's CPGs. So a lot of ours are consistent with that. So that's why I'm referencing the EPA CPG. Must contain 100% total recycled content, and then also meet the EPA CPGs for post-consumer recycled content. And so that is 20% for toilet paper, 40% for paper towels. Excuse me, including that, we have, it also covers facial tissue, paper napkins, toilet seat covers, and wipes. And for that, we have 10%, 30%, 10% for facial, 30% for paper napkins, 20% for toilet seat covers, 40% for wipers. And again, that is based off of the easeability of how recoverable that material is. So you notice how like facial tissue is only at 10%, but if you imagine that going through the whole waste stream and trying to recover that flimsy paper material, it's probably not as easy to get 100%. Bidders must offer at least one universal dispenser option for each type of those products. So instead of having multiple dispensers, you could maybe have one that is for a number of those paper products. And so for anything else I didn't mention, because obviously there's recycled plastic and recycled metals and other mixed materials that that can be done. That there's recycled this is kind of just a general miscellaneous recycled content requirement. So anything that I haven't specified so far, but like the composting containers, the plastic dustpans, the plastic spray bottles, the steel wool pads, polishing stones, toilet bowl brushes, 10% minimum recycled post-consumer content. That's just to cover anything that hasn't, you know, they use a lot of products for janitorial services, so that's just to cover that. Okay, so continuing with the general requirements of the chemicals, equipment, and materials, this is just some actions for the state in the event of state-owned equipment damage or failure. If the contractor or personnel employed by the contractor was using equipment damage or failure, that the contract must inform the building services supervisor within 24 hours of learning about that. So anything damaged or broken, or, you know, any type of problems like that needs to be notified within 24 hours. If available on site, the contract monitor or designated representative, they can request to use chemical concentrates with appropriate dilution systems. That also is, you know, to, you know, save the use of chemicals using chemical concentrates, or also like reducing worker exposure and facilitating proper dilution control. As for the PPE, you know, the workers that are performing the work are involved, you know, in contact with a lot of these chemicals. So CDC does have guidelines along with, you know, the how to sanitize and how to clean. They also include the PPE, the proper PPE to use, depending on what work is being done. And so that requirement is also includes the Executive Order 2007-2901 Part 4, which goes over, all of the different parts of all the different parts that need PPE, whether it be your eyes or your ears or your face. That is typically, a straightforward thing, but I've, in the past, I've seen many projects in my days of landscaping of people not wearing PPE. So I feel like PPE is always a thing that needs to be mentioned for any type of service. So going into the chemicals for hand soap, the cleaning personnel has to use the appropriate, obviously the appropriate technology. So whether it be the automatic dispensers or manual spray bottles for chemical products. And if they are certified by one of those eco labels that they have been trained on how to not overuse chemicals, or maybe even use non-chemical methods to prevent different contamination and things like that. So that is one of the requirements in here. All cleaning chemicals must be issued by the personnel in labeled containers, making sure that they are using the right chemical. Again, this is to prevent contamination in certain areas, but also there are a lot of dangers in mixing the wrong chemicals or using the wrong chemical for whatever cleaning you're supposed to do. So there are health risks associated with that. So I know it seems straightforward, but that is why I'm mentioning the labeling requirements there. Contractor must purchase chemical products and supplies in quantities that minimize the amount of packaging and container waste generated. Again, buying in bulk is a good strategy for that, to reduce the amount of packaging. Hand soaps and cleaning chemicals, they must comply with our GPC spec, which we cover that in our janitorial supply specification. I believe that green seal covers hand soap and foam soaps. But as for surface disinfectants and sanitizers, they must be used in all surfaces and areas where pathogens can collect, not limited to these different areas. The cleaning personnel has to use the disinfectants that are registered, or devices that are regulated by the EPA. When using disinfectants, it's very important to know how much to use and the proper way to use it. So typically disinfectants are used on elevator call buttons, handrails, light switches, just commonly touched areas. And cleaning cloths and floor pads. I mentioned that we have the microfiber requirement or post-consumer recycled content requirement for those cleaning cloths and floor pads. But also they must be used in lieu of the paper products to minimize waste. So when you're using paper cloths, they are being disposed. You're going through that a lot more. These cloths can be washed and reused again. Reusable cloths, again, clean or laundered prior to reuse. And it's also important that these cloths are designated for that specific area and not being cleaned again in another area. So like what cloth that is used to clean the countertops in a break room, hopefully that wasn't the same cloth that was used to clean the bathroom. So obviously to avoid contamination. And so that's why this requirement is put in here, that the reusable cloths have to be color coded so that they are not, being mixed with the different types of cleaning that are being done. Red for toilets and urinals, yellow for other restroom surfaces, blue for general cleaning, dusting and glass surfaces, and green for kitchens, eating areas, water fountains, and coolers. As for mops, they have to be equipped with reusable and cleanable collection heads. Green Seal does have certified mop heads that BISM provides. Mops also, in terms of wiping rags, mops have to kind of follow the same color code of don't use the same mop for multiple rooms. Red for the bathrooms, green for the kitchens, and blue for general. And so when we're talking about powered equipment, each piece of equipment delivered to the contract worksite, it must be serially numbered and appropriately identified. They must have, for the vacuum cleaners, they have to have the proper filter or bag and cleaned and changed according to the manufacturer recommendations. And they must also be replaced when half full or indicated by the sensor. So basically, those precautions are in order to prevent, dust particles while they're working, and also, so that the occupants that come in thereafter are not inhaling those particles as well. So frequent emptying of the filter bags, and that will, reduce that risk of inhaling those particles. As for automatic scrubbing machines, they have to be onboard chemically metering to optimize the use of cleaning fluids, or use only tap water. So basically, not overusing the chemicals for the floor scrubbing machines. All right, so that covers parts A and B of the building specific plan. So the contractor needs to submit a plan that is going to go over those different procedures that I mentioned. So that was what restroom cleaning, break room cleaning, kitchens. It is going to be specific to what your building looks like that you're procuring janitorial services for, but all of those aspects, not limited to that as well, have to be written up and have to be explained how they're going to perform that work, and at what schedule. So that brings me to training and the workers that are performing the janitorial services. But first, with the contractor, they need to have at least 24 hours of in-service training and or education on an annual basis. They need to understand what the green cleaning products are, and how to find them. They have to provide their staff with instructions or a checklist, what areas are being cleaned in this schedule, and so on. And obviously provide them with training. And the training requirements or training materials are listed in great detail in that GS42 standard that I mentioned, as well as that CIMS standard. Those environmental certifications for green janitorial services, those go into very great detail of how training should be done, because that's kind of a bulk of the service eco labels, is that a lot of it is in the training and communication to the workers performing, doing the cleaning. in this case. So for the cleaning personnel, they need to undergo initial training, minimum of 8 hours, 12 recommended on an annual basis. Undergo site-specific training for a minimum of 4 hours. And so that is either before they're assigned to a facility or conducted at the site, as long as the contractor is there to give that instruction. It has to include the SOPs, the CDC protocols for cleaning, and the proper sequencing of cleaning steps. So that's what the training really needs to contain. So, you know, how they clean and the safety measures is a big part of that. If you want to look more into the training requirements, I left out a decent portion of this part in our janitorial spec just because it's a 19-page document. And so if you want to look more at what those training requirements are, you can open up the janitorial services spec and follow along and look through pages 11 through 12 that will go through the initial and on-site training that needs to be done. So along with training, there is record keeping as well. That is going to go over these 7 different things. SOPs, the building specific plan, that's what I've mostly been going over. The inventory of all of your equipment and supplies, material safety data sheets and product labels for those supplies, the equipment and maintenance information, what training material is being taught to the workers, and the documentation that those workers have been trained. So that goes into detail in our spec. I was just listing out what it covers. If you want to know more about it, whether it be the training records or the inventory of equipment and supplies, how to store them and all that stuff, look through pages 12 through 15 to get a full description of that. And so that goes over all requirements. And lastly, I'm just going to talk about this is an optional service for those wanting to or maybe required to implement organics recycling at their facility. This will go over the collection and removal of organic waste. Just a few things listed out here is that the contractor has to work with the state's provider of trash and recycling services in order to offset the waste volume through organic material waste diversion. So basically that, they're going to have to communicate how frequently or how much waste they can take at a time, so that communication has to be done. Organic materials must be collected from all containers in areas where the contractor provides cleaning services. So in every location that cleaning is done, there should be a organics recycling bin there, and so that it's deposited there. Because if they are using, biodegradable rags or liners or things like that, then theoretically that could be put in the organics recycling bin if that trash and recycling service provider is able to do that. Clean and empty organics recycling containers and return to their original location. Again, the liners must be certified compostable by BPI, because then if it is certified compostable by BPI, they can go right into the organics, can go into the bin. If full, cleaning personnel must contact the building services supervisor of where to place the organic material. We know that it's organic material, so it's going to biodegrade, and um, so it will decompose eventually, but it's you know it can't really have a temporary spot to just be sitting there in the building um, if those parameters weren't talked about prior. So having a designated location to keep the organics is an important part in having these service options. As for outdoor organics recycling bins and dumpsters, they need to be kept upright, lids secured, doors closed and locked, and the collection area must be clean of debris. So thanks for hanging with me there. I know that we're already an hour into it, but I just have a few more slides to go over some final submittal requirements and reporting requirements. So this will be relevant to future bids and proposals that, let's say a bidder is offering, I have a green janitorial service that I can provide. I've got green products that I can use. My training and my criteria is consistent with GS42 or another one or another certification. That's great, but you still have to provide proof, and so that's why we have this in here for the submittal requirements that if they have green products, they need to provide proof of applicable certifications. Whether that be a link to the certifier's website, it would be found there. Those certifiers have product registries that you can look up a specific, like in this case, general purpose cleaning product. You can look that up on Green Seal's product registry, and you can find it. So they can send link or documentation to verify their claims, because again, we want no greenwashing whatsoever. If they claim to have green products, we want to make sure that our state funds are being used for the green service, and that we are getting what we paid for, and we are contributing to a more sustainable state of Maryland, basically. So that documentation or link to certification must be provided if they are offering green products, or if they say that they have the qualifications or training records that are acceptable to be awarded the contract that was listed in the minimum requirements section. Then they may provide proof, which could look like a certificate of completion, whether it be a training certification or any other references or qualifications that show that they are able to provide green janitorial services, whether it be some documentation that they or some records that they have performed green cleaning services in the past. That is also acceptable. So, and for the workers as well, they do need to be there needs to be proof that they are trained workers. So I guess some training, either record keeping or certificate of completion, that they're trained workers qualified to perform the work. That is also another submittal requirement to include in there for bidders and offers. So in addition to providing green products for the contract, everything that is purchased commodity-wise or service-wise is reportable in the janitorial supplies category. So in your solicitation, if it doesn't already exist, this reporting language that you can copy and paste, we've provided it for you, is very crucial to implement in future solicitations, because at the state level we want to know and track our progress of, are we, are we buying green? How do we track that? Well, that's through reporting. The contractor shall submit quarterly sales data to the state over the life of this contract. So that has to include details about whether it's recycled content, third-party certifications or eco-labels, or any other environmental attributes that we've included. The GPC has created a reporting template for vendors to fill out in order to facilitate that reporting. Because if they're required to report, then they need to know, they need to be given something to use. And so we have a standardized vendor green sales reporting template. For each quarter, they are to provide or complete what line item by line item, what products your agency has purchased. So basically, so there's that, and then there's also, like, in submitting a response to the solicitation, that means that the bidder or offer acknowledges that they will submit quarterly green sales for this contract. So it's hard. It's very, very hard to get reporting retroactively if the reporting requirements weren't included in there to begin with, because trying to get the reporting after the fact is going to be very difficult when the bidder or offer or contractor says, well, I wasn't required to provide reporting, or you didn't mention this before. So yeah, in your future solicitation, I ask pretty please if you can include this reporting language. Here's just some images of our reporting template, just some basic information, what the state agency is that purchased it, what the product is, links to documentation if there is green attributes involved, if there's certifications involved, enough description to make it clear what was purchased and used for that contract. And the reporting template for services, we do have, and we are interested in collecting more reporting for services, but to be honest, we haven't in the past, because we're still optimizing our way of receiving services, reporting for services, because it's a little different from looking at commodities, because you can enter commodities by line item. And so for services, that is something that we are looking to quantify in the future. And so when greening contracts in the future for janitorial services, a simple way to green that contract is to put green requirements for the products being used to perform that work. So greening those commodities, therefore, greens the contract. We're just thinking, like, in terms of the service, how would that look line by line? So I know I went a little too in detail about that, but we do have a reporting template tab for services, but typically it's the most straightforward way is to just use the report for them to use the reporting template for the commodities that were purchased and used. And so I want to highlight this is just to wrap things up. I want to highlight that every purchase, every procurement matters, not only because the GPC is tracking it, but because we have a lot of purchasing power at the state, and we procure, janitorial services is something that is going to continuously, be of need. And so For something that is regularly going to be bought, that highlights the importance of, you know, including these green requirements and requesting green products, because we've actually been able to quantify this past fiscal year in our annual report that uh, over sorry, I'm trying to squint, over 10 million in janitorial supplies was green. So basically, over $10 million of green janitorial supplies was purchased by the state in the last fiscal year. And that's just 1 year too. So over 10 million, that's pretty significant. That does point out the purchasing power that we do have. And so that also sums up why we do these trainings, because we obviously want to increase green spend, but we want to have, you know, uh, a wide, a lot of government employees aware and knowledgeable on, you know, the green purchasing requirements and the importance of it. And so this just kind of shows that green spend is going to increase over time. And this is just for that specific category of janitorial supplies. There is one disclaimer to mention that in 2021 it's gone down, but I think you all know what was happening during that time, and we weren't purchasing many things. So, but it quickly has gone back to increasing. So, with those future solicitations that we can green and having green contracts for janitorial services, this will play a huge role in having 2025 being even bigger than fiscal year 2024. These reports, just wanted to mention, came from statewide vendors and directly from state agencies as well. Thank you so much for staying with us. I know that was an hour-long presentation, so I appreciate you all staying with me. If there's any questions, feel free to ask them. And if not, you can enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And I hope to see you again for the next training, for next spec training, which I don't believe is until November. That will be office supplies specification.